and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming our Lieutenant Governor, Brian Calley.
Well, thank you so much for the invitation, the kind introduction, and I will say, Mayor, back when I was a county commissioner, I used to run unopposed, and I highly recommend it. It's definitely the best way to run for office. As I think about the course of the last couple of years and the changes that we've seen occur here in our state, and then I compare that to the 4 years that I spent in the legislature, which is really representative, I think, of the entire 10 years before that it is really a remarkable change of both attitude and culture within our system, and one that's really driven by achievement of results. But of course, making change never comes easy. Change always comes with a certain amount of controversy. And I think about even as we made some pretty big changes in 2011. By that summer, there was already an effort by that time to recall the governor. And I remember one time I was speaking to a group in Jackson, and there was this little makeshift booth that was set up outside of the place where I was speaking, and a couple of people were in it. They had a sign on there that said, "Sign your recall Rick Snyder petitions here." And as I was walking by, they didn't recognize who I was apparently, because the lady said, "Sir, would you like to sign a petition to recall Rick Snyder?" And I said, "No, I don't think so." As I walked by, and I thought, "Oh, she had no volume." So I went back and I said, "Hey, I wonder if you realize what happens if you're successful." And the guy next to her said, "Well, throw that bum out of office, that's what happens." And I said, "Well, sure, you could remove the governor from office by recall, but then what happens? You realize then the lieutenant governor becomes governor?" And I was just wondering, do you like him better or something? Think he's more in line with your policies? Do you even know who that guy is? Now, he had an answer for this. He said, "Well, it couldn't be any worse, I know that." I got back to the office the next day and I said, "Sorry, Rick, the people want me. They're standing out in the rain collecting signatures just to get me." Make a great campaign slogan. Couldn't be any worse. I did say, but I said, "Listen, maybe it could be, who knows? I mean, maybe he is worse." I said, "Listen, I know the lieutenant governor. In fact, I know him so well, I know how he thinks. And if you don't like Rick Snyder, you're really not going to like him." By the way, I'm him. It's nice to meet you. This is, as we look at it, see, there's a certain reaction to change, and the defenders of the status quo are very fierce. I mean, the status quo is the status quo because the people who defend the status quo are very effective at defending it, at maintaining it. The problem is that it wasn't serving our state well. In fact, it was really hurting the future generations. And so when we came in, we knew that the results, the performance, was something that we couldn't accept. The problem was, every single year, there were more and more people that were willing to accept Michigan's place on the economic ladder. Like we had been at the bottom so long that people started thinking that's where we're supposed to be. But that's not where we're supposed to be. It's not who we are, it's not where we come from, it's certainly not our heritage. Yet we found ourselves at the top of every list you want to be at the bottom of, and at the bottom of every list you want to be at the top of. And so we knew that we had to get the fiscal crisis behind us, and we had to do that very quickly. We were going to start rebuilding the state. And that meant balancing the budget. We didn't have time to, it wasn't going to get, it's not like wine, it doesn't get better with time, right? So the situation we had to deal with right away was just get the financial stability of the state underneath it again. And so we balanced the budget. We did that in a period of time that was unusual, shall we say, and now 4 months early is the new on time But you know, when we balanced the budget and did it by June, that was contrast to the previous years with infamous government shutdowns. Now that was when I first started in state government. I was elected in the House of Representatives in 2006, took office in 2011, and that was when there was a big fight between the leadership people in the legislature and the governor, and right up to the point where we had a very embarrassing government shutdown that year. And up to the ramp up to that, there were these all-night sessions. You guys remember this? They like locked everybody in, they did a call of the House, so the representatives, well, all we could just sit there and wait until they allowed us to vote on something. And it took weeks. And October 1st came and went. In fact, I remember I was sleeping one time under my desk because we were there, around the clock. And I took off my tie. That was before Rick Snyder. We all wore ties back then. And so I would wait till the Detroit news photographer went home because he'd like to take pictures of us sleeping, and they put them on the website, which will come out and things. So after he went home, I'd pull out the chair, I'd lay down under the desk, take off my tie, put it over my eyes because I keep the lights on all the time in there. And I thought this job was going to be more glamorous than this. But what came out of that was a determination to say, never again. If I'm ever in a position to make decisions, to move our state forward, to take on the tough issues, put the next generation ahead of ourselves, if I'm ever in a position to avoid this type of embarrassment, instead work on behalf of the people of the state of Michigan instead of on behalf of some sort of an age-old political fight, I'm going to do it. And then we had that opportunity in 2011. So we started a process at that point to say, all right, what do we need to fix? We need to balance the budget. $1.5 billion structural budget deficit. We did balance it. No smoke and mirrors, no accounting gimmicks, just flat out hard work at balancing it the same way you do with your checkbook. But that wasn't enough. We had to start saving for the future and we had to start paying down our debt. As I stand before you today, we have $20 billion less debt in the state of Michigan than when we started. That's $2,000 less for every man, woman, and child in this state. It is possible for government to reduce debt. And so we're proving that on an example for the rest of we passed that budget by June 1st. That was the fastest it had passed since I was 6 years old. So, he's always saying, well, that wasn't that long ago. But it was 30 years ago. And so, more important though than the speed, we don't procrastinate. We work, the government says, dog years, right? So we do 7 years worth of work every year. And between saving for the future, $500 million in the rainy day fund, which when we started, the rainy day fund would have run our state government for a total of 32 minutes. That's where we started. Reduced that balanced budget. Now, what this gives us an opportunity to do is to be much more proactive. We also changed the tax system, which we were ranked 49th best in the nation. That's what the governor calls relentless positive action, right? 49th best means second worst. That was our business tax plan. And today, we are 7th best, according to the Tax Foundation, nonpartisan organization, the gold standard in ranking these things. That's an unprecedented leap to best practice. And you know what we did is we looked at it and said, we need to create an environment for success around the people that are already here. So the process before started under Governor Ing, or supercharged under Governor Granholm, was a different type of economic development that was based around how do we convince somebody from somewhere else around the world to come in here and save us. Instead of really looking at, if you're for job growth, it makes sense, you understand where do your jobs come from. Now I'd like to look at economic statistics that come from the Edward Lowe Foundation. Anybody here know who Edward Lowe is or was? There's one back here. So Edward Lowe, entrepreneur, Cass County, Michigan, the inventor of kitty litter. That's part of our heritage, kitty litter, inventor of kitty litter. All kinds of world-changing things that have been invented in Michigan, like scrubbing bubbles, that's invented in Michigan. Saran wrap, invented in Michigan. Ziploc bag, invented in Michigan. But the kitty litter, okay, so Edward Lowe left behind, the Edward Lowe Foundation. He died several years ago. And he keeps, the Edward Lowe Foundation keeps economic statistics per county by county. And it categorizes job growth and job loss in 3 different areas. So you have in their net numbers. So there's from startup companies, and then to get a net number, you subtract out companies that went out of business. You have current companies that expanded, got bigger, got jobs, minus the ones that contracted, got smaller. And then you have relocations into our state or that county and relocations out. Now, if you look at 2 different time periods in Michigan's history, the 1990s and the 2000s. Okay, the 1990s was a time of economic expansion in Michigan. The 2000s was a time of economic contraction in Michigan. Now, I love the debate over this. My friends who are Democrats say, well, naturally, that's because, in the 1990s, you had Bill Clinton. In the 2000s, you had George Bush. And my Republican friends said, no, that's not. It's because you had John Engler in the 90s and Jennifer Granholm in the 2000s. But regardless of where you assign the blame or where you put the credit, we can all agree that the 1990s was a time of economic expansion. The 2000s was a time of economic contraction. Where did our jobs come from in those 2 time periods? In the 90s, we had some job growth from startups. None in the 2000s in that category. In both time periods, we lost jobs from relocations. We had more relocations out than we had in. And the majority of our job growth in the 90s came from companies that were already here that got bigger. Our only positive job growth in the 2000s came from companies that were already here getting bigger. And yet our entire economic development strategy for 15 years was based on how do we convince people to relocate into Michigan? In other words, come in here and save us. And this is a wrong approach. And so what we did is we said, instead of us picking and choosing which industries are favored, we're going to be the fill in the flavor of the month capital of the world tomorrow. Instead, say that we're going to, no matter what you do, no matter where your hopes and your dreams and your aspirations and your ideas take you, that we're going to make Michigan the best possible place that you can operate in. And so it started with the corporate income tax. It continued with regulatory reform. We have 1,300 net, 1,300 less rules and regulations than when we started. And we're just getting started on that process. Now we're launching into the process improvement in terms of the operating at the speed of business, permits and applications and so forth that you have to deal with the state. Any touch point at the state, empowering frontline employers to provide good customer service. Now, this is hard cultural change for any level of government, but especially one the size of the state of Michigan. But we are moving the needle in these areas. We're absolutely determined to continue to create a climate for success around you, around the ones that were here the whole time, already community leaders, already dedicated to the advancement of our state, the advancement of the community that you call home, and where your business calls home. You didn't have to bribe you to come. You're already here. And so we're going to do the very best that we possibly can for you. So my main message I want to say to you today is thank you. Thank you for taking a chance on our state. Thank you for sticking it out with us through hard times. I'm so excited to see what you're going to do with better times. We look at our trend lines now. We can see and understand. I know we've got a long, long way to go. We understand that a few years ago, we're sitting at unemployment of 14.2%. And now as it drops below 9, we know that we've got great prospects in our state. We see that our state went from being a rich state, measured on a per capita income basis, to being a poor state. That only took 10 years for that transition. And yet now we're seeing we're seeing personal income growth rates that are leading the nation, top 10 in the nation on our personal income growth rate. and our GDP growing at similar levels. But you know, of all these, so we can point to a lot of statistics, home sales and home prices and so forth starting to rebound as well. A lot of things we can point to and say that our state, the trend lines in our state are heading in the right direction finally. These things that have improved our operating environment, put together with talented, hardworking entrepreneurs with good ideas that are making a difference every day, and a resurgence of the auto industry, which is about half of the good news that is happening in our state. The good news is there's another half that's other things too. You put all that together, my favorite statistic to point at, though, is one that is a result of all those other things. After 8 years of population decline in our state last year, Michigan actually grew. Not by much, but it grew after successive year after year after year of decline. And that's because we were exporting our most precious asset, which is that next generation. Our college graduates, our young families that had to go elsewhere for opportunity. And as that starts to change, that's where our real future lies. So I'm bullish on Michigan. I'm an optimistic person anyway, but I'm bullish on Michigan and where we go from here. This is going to be an opportunity for all of us to be a part of a comeback that will surprise the world. And now that we're at a stage, now that we're at a point where the problems that have existed or have been snowballing over the course of the last 60 years in our biggest city are being dealt with. Folks, having a big city that attracts young folks, like Chicago does in Illinois, or like Boston does in Massachusetts, or like Atlanta does in Georgia, having that ingredient in our state, it's been one of our major missing links. And we're going to get there. We're absolutely determined that Detroit can and will be great again. So when we get that city back on a path to success, I think it's really going to unleash the potential of our state to the extent that we haven't seen in a long, long time. In fact, there's a lot of people, like people in my generation, have never seen what the possibilities are when you have Detroit that's working. Thank you so much. It's been really